Marvel Snap has taken up quite a lot of my time over the past year. It's so easy to just find a little bit of downtime and queue up a quick game for the hell of it. Then one game turns into two games turns into three, and 3 games suddenly turns into 3 a.m. and you realize you were supposed to go to bed 5 hours ago. It's addicting. My relationship with Snap has been one of love and hate, however. It's a pretty regular cycle for me. Pick up the game, really enjoy my time, get annoyed by a few little things, get really tilted by one bad loss, and then stop playing for a few weeks. And then I pick it up again, and the whole process is just looping forever. Recently, however, I've been enjoying Snap a lot more. I found myself sinking in more hours in my free time, and I'm always itching to play while I'm at work. It is just about all I think about these days. That being said, there are still things that I'm really not a fan of in this game, even during the times where I really like it. Today, we're going to discuss the top 5 changes I'd like to see in Marvel Snap. Let's get into it. Oh, and just as a side note, this isn't going to cover anything sandbox related. While there are a few cards in the current meta that I'm not exactly in love with, solving the format isn't something I'm particularly interested in or something I feel like I'm particularly qualified for. So just keep that in mind. One of the most exciting parts of this game to me is acquiring new cards. There's no better feeling than opening up a cache and finding a new card to use in your decks. Unfortunately, the process of acquiring new cards is also the most frustrating aspect of Snap. Card acquisition has been a hot topic for as long as I can remember. I'm not necessarily opposed to the randomness of card acquisition, but it's pretty frustrating going for sometimes 100 levels without seeing a new card. Personally, I can't stand it when I receive things like titles, avatars, and even sometimes variants before I get some of the cards I'm missing. This is also a great time to mention that the current Spotlight Cache system is pretty terrible. In case you're not familiar, Spotlight Caches drop every 100-ish collection levels or so, and every week there's a rotation of 3 cards in the cache, as well as an opportunity for a random Series 4 or 5 card. Opening one of these caches will give you a random copy of one of the featured cards for the week. Because the caches are so far apart on the collection track, it's typically most efficient to save your caches over time if you're gunning for one card in particular. That way, even if you get terrible luck, at least you've got more chances to open the card. In my case, I was not so fortunate. A few weeks ago, Thanos was a featured card that I was chasing after. I saved up 3 caches, which I thought would be enough, but thanks to my marvelous luck, I didn't pull him. Instead, I got... yikes. When Spotlight Caches were introduced, Second Dinner also nerfed the frequency of collector's tokens. Not only do tokens drop less often, but fewer tokens drop when you receive them each time, making purchasing cards with tokens incredibly inefficient. So, to summarize, card acquisition needs a massive overhaul. The token system is good, but it's hard to take advantage of in the current conditions. And Spotlight Caches are flawed by a lack of choice. Second Dinner has an interesting way of organizing their cards. Every single card is categorized into a different series, which determines how early you can acquire the card in your Snap journey. Series 1 cards drop on the collection track from levels 18 to 214. These are some of the most basic cards, aside from the starter cards in the game. Series 2 cards drop on the collection track from levels 222 to 474. They show more advanced functionality than any of their predecessors. And finally, Series 3 through 5 cards have the potential to drop from all forward levels on the track. This is where we're going to find a lot of our meta-defining cards. Series 3, 4, and 5 cards have a random chance to draw from collector's reserves, but they can also be purchased with collector tokens in the shop. Series 3 cards cost 1,000 tokens, Series 4 costs 3,000, and Series 5 cards cost a whopping 6,000 tokens. Occasionally, Second Dinner will move cards into lower series, theoretically making them more obtainable. However, this hasn't happened for quite a while. On top of that, certain cards have been neglected for moving down entirely. For example, Darkhawk, which has been a consistent meta pick for a while, has remained in Series 4 for months on end, while other newer cards have been dropped before him. To be fair, cards only used to debut at Series 5 before they were eventually moved down to Series 4 and 3. We now have new cards debuting in Series 4 as well, but I still feel that cards should become more accessible over time. Something I frequently praise Marvel Snap for is their excellent communication with their community. They keep a clear eye on the game and are very vocal about its state through weekly over-the-air or OTA patches. Every week, a few cards receive minor balance adjustments to slightly shift the meta a bit. These OTA patches sometimes lead to hasty decisions, however. For example, there was a moderate uproar from the community regarding the nerf to Mobius, a card that had recently been released for a cost of 3,000 tokens. The nerf largely neutered the card to the point of unplayable, and Second Dinner got so much negative feedback from the decision that the nerf was actually reverted not so long after. Now let's get one thing straight. I think it's very important for players to tread cautiously when it comes to purchasing cards. Mobius is sort of an exception to the situation because he had been out for such a short time, nobody thought that he would get nerfed, which is a reasonable assumption to make. However, when a card has been plaguing a sandbox for weeks or sometimes even months on end, you need to be careful when you're buying it. A nerf is always a possibility. That being said, however, it's also undeniable that losing out on so many tokens in such a short period of time is a terrible feeling. Optimally, the goal should be to not release overtuned cards. Cards shouldn't enter the game with an immediate meta impact to the point of requiring a near instant balance adjustment. Now, this next one is wishful thinking. Second Dinner's goal is to keep players in the game for as long as possible, and this could potentially neglect that. Regardless, I would love some sort of way to target farm boosters for a single card, similarly to how Agatha Harkness functions. Upgrading cards is one of the biggest appeals to this game, especially when stuff like inked and golden splits exist. However, it can be really frustrating when RNG isn't on your side, and those last few boosters you need for a split just won't drop. Another potential solution to this is creating one universal booster currency, as opposed to a million different boosters for specific cards. At the end of the match, you would just receive X number of boosters that you could use towards whichever card you like. If you really want to be nitpicky about it, you could adjust the number of boosters required or the number of credits required to upgrade a card. Personally, I don't think anyone would be too mad with this change. All the casual players that don't have that much time to play in a day would at least be able to get their inked and golden splits a little faster, and hardcore players would also just be able to grind out more even quicker. It is a win-win if you ask me. And finally, let's talk about one of my biggest pet peeves with this game. Taking a deck into a private match to test it out, and then rolling a location like Ego or District X that completely neuters my ability to properly test a deck. I think it would be awesome if we could create custom rule sets just like you can in Super Smash Bros. That way you could set the exact zones you would like to see in rotation, as well as the exact cards potentially. It also solves another minor problem that I have. Earlier this year, during one of my charity streams, I ran a Marvel Snap tournament. One of the biggest worries I had was that I didn't want a competitor to feel like they got snubbed of a win because of an out-of-control location. It really wouldn't leave a good taste in your mouth if you got all the way to the grand finals of a tournament, outplaying all of your opponents, just for something like Lamentus to pop up and completely ruin the final game. Also, on the note of casting tournaments, I think it would be awesome if there was some sort of a spectate mode in Snap, even if it was just for private matches. Discord's screen sharing quality is usually pretty bad, and I can't exactly just ask all of my friends to buy Nitro for 1 month, so the ability to see a game within the game would be so cool. And that just about does it. Those are the 5 top things on my wish list for Marvel Snap. Do you guys agree or disagree? Do you guys want anything different from Marvel Snap? Let me know down in the comments below. And if Marvel Snap content is something that you would like to see more of, also let me know. I am sort of testing the waters on some new stuff right now, so hopefully I'm doing a good job at this. But I'm gonna go now. I'm gonna go, edit this video. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.